Welcome to part 4 of our guide to CH Studio. In part 4 we're going to look at combination. In fact, sometimes we call it the power of combination, where you can take indices of your choice and combine them either using methods that are pretty much standard in the investment industry, such as risk parity, or you can set your own weights, or mean variance, for example, where you try and maximize the return for the least variance. But also, importantly, with CH Studio, you have a whole series of C8 proprietary combination ideas, and I'll go into those in a later video. But let's look at an example and just illustrate just how easy it is to combine indices. And the one reason why this works so well with direct indexing is, importantly, if you allocate to each different index, then you're trading the gross positions, and you need to have margin for each of those gross positions for each of the providers. Now, of course, with direct indexing, you're just trading the underlying, and it's a very important point that in this case some of these trades may be offsetting, and you're actually only required to trade the net positions. And of course, you only need to margin for the net positions. And in an example, such as foreign exchange, where there are typically only a few major currencies, you can easily illustrate that it could be 4 or 5 times more efficient to use direct indexing than to allocate out to each of the individual strategies. But anyway, let's have a look at an example of just how easy it is to do on CH Studio. And in this case, we're going to look at what has become quite a standard method for combining indices, and that's called risk parity. And that's where each index is given the same risk-adjusted weight, and in that, some respects, can often be seen as quite a balanced portfolio. So let's go back to the idea that we looked at in video 3, which is where we're looking at portfolio allocation strategies. So we can click portfolio allocation, click apply, and here are the portfolio allocation indices on the platform. And if we look at a similar sort of choices that we made, we can combine them in the same way as we previously compared them. So first things first, we look at combine, and then of course we need to select the indices. So let's look at similar ones as last time. Alpha V managed top 5 equities and treasuries, JP Omega US cross asset, Ned Davis research, smart sector model, smooth sailing US stock and bond, and Stargazer dynamic allocation. And here you can see them on the right hand side, and if you wanted to change your selection, you can just click on the X to remove it. Of course, we do actually want it in this case. And then we go next, and this gets to the sort of the key parameters that we want to set. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a selection, in this case, 8 different methods that we can combine a portfolio. And in this case, as we discussed, we'll just use risk parity. One of the great things about the combination technology that we have as well is that it allows you to use walk-forward optimization, and this gives, in our view, a much more realistic view of how these combinations will perform in real time, because the performance is only generated out of sample. So let's click at walk-forward optimization, say look at previous 24 months for the sample, and we'll do that every 12 months. We can also take this process and say, well, what volatility do we want to run? So we click on here. In this case, 10 vol sounds fine. And secondly, what period do we want to optimize across? And in this case, we'll probably look at, say, let's look at 2000, from 2012 to 2022. That's the last 10 years. And these are the 5 indices. Click next. Give it a name. CA Studio Demo. Risk Parity. And click Create. And very quickly, in a matter of just a few seconds, we have the results. So here are the key data. Here is CA Studio Demo Risk Parity in bold, in orange, but also we have the other indices. We can see the statistics. For 12, it actually produces realized vol of 12%, because obviously all the performance is out of sample, an annualized return of nearly 18%, 1.43 Sharpe ratio. And then we can look at how that compares to the other strategies, or the individual strategies. We can see monthly performance. So that, the last few years have worked well for these kinds of ideas. As we can see, 34%, 20%, 31%. It's been a more difficult year for many strategies this year, but it's only down 4.5%, which obviously compares very well with just a long stock portfolio. We can also see the different weights. How if we're giving equal volatility, so how does that in fact weight the portfolio? And we can see that's the current ones. In terms of portfolio, that's pretty much unleveraged, 0.95. We can see how the portfolio has changed over time, changed each year. And we can see that on a table as well. One very interesting element when we're looking at combining is how correlated are these returns that we've combined. And of course, from portfolio theory, we know that the less correlated they are, the better they are. And finally, I think this is a very interesting chart, and it shows you when there has been event risk, how would our portfolio have performed? So over this period, in the Swiss franc breakup, we would actually have made money. Chinese stock market was flat. In the Brexit vote, it made money. And during the COVID period, comparing to a 16% drop in the first 3 weeks of March 2000, the portfolio only dropped 5. We also can see the different parameters that we've set, and the portfolios. Finally, it's very easy to click on a button here and actually create a PDF for your own records. So, I hope that gives a good idea about just how easy it is to combine indices. And of course, you can combine passive indices, active indices, combine with ETFs. And for us, we see this really as one of the great advantages of direct indexing, and as a result of which we've built in some very powerful tools and make it very easy for a client to combine indices together and try and work out basically their desired portfolios, create the positions, and as we'll see in later videos, how straightforward it is to then go and trade. Thank you.